In today's video, I'm going to show you how to re-enable a scenario and verify your schedule settings in Make so your automations start running exactly when you need them to. Make is one of the most powerful no-code automation platforms out there, and knowing how to confidently switch your scenarios back on and confirm they're scheduled correctly is one of those foundational skills that saves you a lot of frustration down the road. If you find this helpful, please hit that like button and subscribe so you never miss a tutorial. And let's get started. Before we jump in, let's quickly talk about why you might find yourself needing to do this. Make automatically turns off a scenario if it encounters too many errors, or sometimes you've manually paused it while making edits and simply forgotten to switch it back on. Either way, a scenario that is toggled off does absolutely nothing. No data gets processed, no actions fire, and whatever workflow you've built just sits there silently. So the first thing we're going to fix is that toggle, and then we're going to make sure your schedule is set up so those runs actually happen on autopilot. The first step is re-enabling your scenario, and you have two places where you can do this, depending on where you currently are in the app. The first option is from inside the scenario editor itself. Once you have your scenario open, take a look at the very bottom left corner of your screen. You'll see a small but important toggle switch. It will either show you a gray or dim state when the scenario is off, or a highlighted active state when it's on. Click that toggle to switch it to on. You'll usually see it light up or change color to confirm the change. This is the quickest way if you're already inside the editor working on your flow. The second option is from the dashboard, and this is actually the method I tend to use when I'm managing multiple scenarios at once. Navigate back to your main scenarios list. That's the overview page where all your automations are lined up. Find the specific scenario you want to re-enable, and right there in the list you'll see a toggle switch sitting next to it. One click and it's back on. No need to even open the editor. This is especially handy when you're doing a quick health check across several workflows and you want to flip things back on without diving deep into each one. Now here's something that trips up a lot of people, and I really want you to pay attention to this because it's a very common source of confusion. Turning the scenario on does not automatically mean it will run on a schedule. Those are two separate settings. The toggle simply tells Make that this scenario is active and eligible to run. But if you haven't told Make when or how often to run it, it won't do anything automatically. That brings us to the second step, which is verifying your schedule settings, and this is arguably the more important of the two. To get to your schedule settings, you're going to be inside the scenario editor. Look at your first module. That's the trigger module, the one sitting right at the beginning of your flow on the left side. In Make, the trigger is what kicks everything off, and it's also where your scheduling lives. You'll notice a small clock icon, either on or near that trigger module. Click it. Alternatively, look at the bottom of the editor screen, right alongside that activation toggle we just talked about. There's a schedule control there as well. Either one will open the same scheduling panel. Inside that panel, you'll see your frequency options, and this is where you decide how often Make checks for new data or fires your scenario. You have several choices here. Regular intervals lets you set a run every few minutes or hours, which is perfect for scenarios that need to stay in near real-time sync. Every day gives you a clean once-a-day trigger, which works beautifully for reporting, digest emails, or daily data pulls. Specific dates is there for one-off or recurring calendar-based triggers like a monthly invoice send or an annual reminder. Choose whatever fits your use case. A good rule of thumb: if you're processing time-sensitive data like new form submissions or incoming emails, go with a shorter interval. If you're doing something like a daily summary, once a day is plenty and keeps your operation count low. Once you've selected your frequency and configured any additional timing details, like what time of day if you've chosen a daily run, do not forget to save your changes before you leave the editor. This is another small step that people overlook, and then they wonder why their schedule never took effect. Look for the Save button, click it, and make sure you get a confirmation that your settings have been stored. A scenario that isn't saved is a scenario that will silently revert to whatever state it was in before. At this point, you've done everything right. Your scenario is toggled on, your schedule is configured, and your changes are saved. Make will now pick up from here and start running your automation at the intervals you've defined, completely hands-free. That's the real power of what you've just set up. You've handed off a repeating task to a machine and it will execute it reliably without you needing to think about it again. A helpful next step from here is to run your scenario once manually using the Run Once button, just to confirm everything works end to end before you rely on the schedule. Watch the execution path light up module by module, check that data is flowing correctly, and fix anything that looks off while you're here. You can also monitor your scenario's history from the dashboard to keep an eye on run status over time. Save this video and come back to it whenever you're setting up a new scenario or troubleshooting one that seems to have gone quiet. These 2 steps are almost always the answer. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.